This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Is there a sports podcast in Detroit that people are talking about?
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Welcome in, everybody. You're listening to the latest edition of Doc and Jock. We're at episode 259. Welcome in, everybody. Thank you for downloading. I am the Doc, John Macaroon. Joining me, radio superstar Adam Strozinski. What's up, cuz? You're having yourself quite a day. Holy cow. You not only are you on the radio, you're podcasting. Not only are you podcasting your own shows, you're going to go after this recording and record for somebody else's podcast. Holy cow, man. What a day for you.
You got to do the grind, baby.
I like the grind.
What, 259 shows. The Tigers finally recognize where we exist. We get to be on the local Detroit airwaves. What more can you ask? And what, 2-3 podcasts we'll get done today? What can you ask, man? We're living the dream. This is the dream.
That's all you can ask for, man. So what was it like? You were on the air 3 to 6 p.m. You hosted your second on-air show with your producer there. It was a good show. I enjoyed the conversation. Lots of good back and forth with the callers. Seems like you got some tweets in there, too, as well. People were saying that you were doing pretty good. I liked the response. I enjoyed the majority of the show that I got to listen to, talking the Lions, talking Ziggy Ansah, talking about Michigan State, what's going on at Big Ten Media Day. Overall, it was great. You sounded more relaxed. Sounded like you had a good time with it.
Yeah, I was definitely more relaxed this time around. First time, super nervous. I almost felt like my heart was going to jump out of my chest for like the first 2 hours. This time, no big deal. We just kind of went in, we rocked it out. Big shout out to Ryan Elke and to Jed Schilling. They both sat there, came on, did a great job. Ryan produced it all. It was really, really good, man. It was a lot of fun. I got some good feedback from my program director, so that's good. Looking forward to him listening through the tape and sitting there critiquing me some more. You know, you can only get better if somebody sits there and breaks down your mistakes. I'm looking forward to that, so it should be good, man. Yeah, you know what? I enjoyed it a lot. It was a lot of work. Like, you don't realize how much really goes into trying to cover all your bases for, I mean, it was only 3 hours, but we anticipated not having a high call volume because DFN does not have the strongest signal and does not pull the best ratings. So we knew calls were going to be a little bit of an issue, and we tried to plan for that. I thought for sure people would be all about talking Lions, and I kind of feel foolish because on our rundown, we've got Lions as number one, and they were not about talking the Lions. I don't know if they were just listening, and they enjoyed the conversation Ryan and I were having, but nobody wanted to talk Lions. Now, college football, everybody's juiced up for some college football, and the hype train is running for both blue and green and white.
And sometimes you have to also recognize what's going on in the news. And people are kind of waiting for training camp. It's not just there yet. And so I do think that if I was there, I would have said, look, yeah, definitely start maybe with college football, media day, stuff like that, and then reset that. And then the Lions maybe in the middle of the show. But I mean, literally, anything that you talked about was going to be good because you sounded more comfortable and you had strong takes. I really liked the opening take that you had regarding Ziggy Ansah, and we'll talk about that right after this. But you had a strong take. It was bold. You had something that you had to say, and it allowed for some dialogue because your co-host there had the opportunity to rebut, and you kind of took it and naturally flowed with it. So I like I said, 3 hours, you sounded great. You did resets. You came in and out of breaks pretty good, and the phone calls were great. And I like it when callers attack other callers.
Oh,
man.
dude, it's the best.
It's the best.
Caller-on-caller violence is the most fun.
And I was going to ask you before you sat down at 3 o'clock, I was going to say, are you in the big chair? And it sounded like you were. It sounded like you had Ryan on the other side and you were in front of the computer pushing the button for the phone calls, man. Good stuff.
Yeah, that's what it was. I led the show.
You led off first. I heard your voice first. I'm like, oh, okay, he's in the driver's seat. And I do think in that dynamic, if it's you and Ryan again, maybe if you get invite the doc next time in the morning or 3 o'clock, we'll see what happens. But
I'll work on it.
Yes,
I'll see what I can do for
no,
you.
No, it was great. I enjoyed it, and so I said, okay.
This was a last second thing. Like, I had basically 24, 36 hours to put it all together.
Yeah, I got the message. I'm like, oh, number 2, yes, good for Adam. And I thought, okay, and it was great to hear you leading off, and you were in the chair, and I'm like, this is perfect. This is the way to go. Adam can do some things. providing you more opportunities to get more reps and get more evaluations. Now you got 2 3-hour shows to put on tape, and that's all you can do is get good feedback, do more social media, do more, and just keep kicking the door down. That's all I said was, look, kick the door down, and I know you listen because there's no way you get on the air without asking, and that's what I wanted to, when I said, let's talk about your radio career, all I could say is, look, you got to get reps, you got to ask, you got to say, hey, if these guys are off, don't go to best of. Nobody really likes that. As a listener, I don't like best of shows. I heard it once. I don't want to hear it again. Go to somebody live, give somebody an opportunity, and see if there's somebody there that can do the job, and you can do the job. No doubt about it. You can lead a show. I'd listen, and I thought about it, though. I was like, man, I should call in as like Mohammed in Madison Heights and just start going, man, I do think that Michigan State's going to win it all.
I thought for sure you were going to call.
I was like,
every time I seen the phone light up, I was like, I was waiting for Doc in Sterling Heights. I kept waiting.
I said, no, I'm going to just be a listener, enjoy, and listen to it from a perspective of what am I going to say to my man when he comes in for the podcast. It was great. You did a good job. You handled the callers well. You took everything in stride, and that's all you can do as a host. And I think the podcast, you would say, has helped you because we've bantered back and forth, and you've hosted shows before. So it's not the first time you've been in front of a microphone. All we can say is you've actually, like I said, we said going to this project, we were just going to take it wherever it went, and it's now taking you to hosting 2 radio shows, and you're starting to do what you want to do.
Top 13 market.
It's top 13 market, so it's great for a resume builder. And you heard the news that the Tigers have said, look, all right, we'll reply to an email. You sent like 250 of them. We'll reply to one of them. And so the next thing is to apply for a game and see what happens. And so the way it's going to go down is basically just like I like it. I'm kind of in the back of the line. If there's going to be a big-time national game like versus the Astros or Boston, probably will be in the back of the line. But midweek game, there's an opportunity now.
Twins are in town.
Twins are in town Wednesday, 1 o'clock after
Guess
recording.
Who's covering that?
Guess who's going to be in the press box? It's going to happen. And they asked fair questions, and they got their answers, and they said, all right, Doc, look, your outlet's getting big guests. You're making noise. People are tweeting at us. You know what's going on. You're getting your guys all over the place. Your guys are all over the radio station. You're doing some fun things. And I told you before, I'm not going to not stop trying. What am I going to do? I got 2 hours free every day. I work 10 hours a day, 2 hours are free. So I'm going to start emailing people. And it happened. And I told you it happened, and that's where it goes. And that's what we can keep doing is to say, hey, we are not an entity like the New York Daily News. We're not going to rip everybody's job away. We are a small staff of 4 to 5, and we're going to keep it that way, small but productive, and we're making big noise. And that's all you can ask for is to say, hey, when you got topics, you got people from all over the country going, look, I don't want to talk about poker. I don't want to hear about that. I want to hear about this. And if you're not going to talk about stuff related to Detroit, then I'm not going to listen. And I'm like, okay, Mikey P, I'll put this show together the way you want, Mikey P. But he is definitely in the top 5 of listeners that listen from the state of Michigan. Good guy, and
he sends us a ton of stuff.
Good content and good fun stuff. But for what the network's doing, it's all good, and you had a good time with it. And I do think that the listeners of Metro Detroit are going to hear more and more of you, and we built a platform so that I could do it. And it was awesome to say, hey, listen to Adam. And I didn't even know that the Tigers were going to play, so you had the stage there for 2 hours.
It was pretty
You had
cool.
the stage.
I did.
So,
there was nothing else but
you guys.
DFN.
That was it.
So it was cool. I really wish we would have generated more calls. I did like the calls. I like going back and forth with people. It's just sometimes it gets really hard because sometimes you get some really long-winded callers.
Yeah.
And
I think you'll say that now your internal clock, I'll tell you, 90 seconds.
Yeah.
90 seconds.
That's really like get in, get out. But it's... I don't know. It's hard because they're like, oh, what about this? And what about that? And you're like, all right, cool. It's another voice. It's more dialogue, which is what you're looking for. But yeah, you're right. Get in, get out, make your point. Let's keep it moving. But I had a great time. Thought it was
What's
so
your favorite
much fun.
part about doing a sports show? What's your favorite part about doing it?
Probably the rush. There's like this adrenaline rush right before the mic goes on. And it's like that buildup. So normally... I get like real neurotic about it, and like I can't sleep at night. My stomach gets upset. I'm just playing all these scenarios over in my head, and I'm trying to run through what I should say, when I should say it, and how I should say it. Like I'm just trying to. I'm way too type A is what the problem is. And in radio, you really need to be type B. You need to be all over the place because it just allows you to flow with whatever's going on, And especially if you've got good people working with you, it makes your job that much easier, and it allows you to just be like a yoga teacher, and you're just flexible. So it's the rush beforehand, and then it's interacting with people. Like me and Ryan can talk all day long. Me and Ryan do talk all day long. We'll be walking around the office, and we'll sit there and we'll engage in like a 20-minute conversation. It's like, oh crap, we got to go back and do work. What are we doing? And that's fun. That's fine. But interacting with other people, talking with other people, getting their perspective is cool. and I like that part. You know, it's the best part about all of my jobs is just interacting with regular folks and just talking to them. And I was telling my boss the other day, she was like, "You just ask all kinds of questions." I was like, "Well, everybody's got a story. They just don't know that they want to tell it. Your job is to get them to tell it." And she just kind of looked at me like I was absolutely crazy. And I was like, "No, it's the truth, you know." Like I was talking to Glenn Winston. I seen him and I talk with him quite often, actually, former MSU running back. By the way, he's going for a tryout down in Houston, so a little insider info there. But he's a really cool dude. I'm trying to get him on this podcast. He's just, every time I see him, he's always super busy. So hopefully we can get him on and we can get a story out of him or two. So, but he, you know, I was like, everybody's got a story. Like that guy's got a story. He has a story. He wants to tell it. He doesn't know he wants to tell it, but he wants to tell it. And you got to ask the right questions and you try to pull it out of him.
You did a good job. Everybody that listened, I think, gave you good reviews, and that's all you can do is the opportunity to get critiqued by somebody in the know, a program director, will only help you. You have more content to send out there to the world, and good things are happening. Like I said, if you told me 5 years ago that you'd be on the air hosting shows, I'd be like, yeah, okay, keep podcasting, brother.
Right.
Stay in this lane. But after a while, you realize, okay, you can do the job, and now you just keep doing it more. That's the next step.
I will tell you this, man. This podcast has, I think, helped both of our voices mature and become much, much better. And now we're able to have this conversation and not just utilize this platform to sit across from each other and talk and to sit there and just act wild and crazy, but we're able to now use this platform to branch out and do other things and to help other people and to further what we want to do in our career.
It's unbelievable that people message us and they're doing their thing, and it's fun the way things work out. And I do think that people that work hard and they genuinely like what they're doing, it just shows. And
it does.
Over 259 episodes, I do think that it's a fun conversation.
Like if we hated it, we wouldn't be doing it for this much.
Exactly. So let's jump right in. Detroit Lions, they're about to enter training camp. It's interesting what's going on. There's been a lot of talk regarding Matthew Stafford and where he ranks in terms of the tiers. I really like ESPN and the way they kind of broke it down. All the NFL executives kind of talked about the quarterbacks and where they ranked them. Couple snubs here and there. They put Matthew Stafford in tier 2. We'll talk about that. But the first thing that caught everybody's attention is Ziggy Ansah, injured again, is on the PUP list to start the year. And people were kind of like, wow, that's a little bit concerning. It caught your eye and has raised a lot of anxiety for you regarding Ezekiel Ansah. For me, when I heard your take on it, saying that potentially Ezekiel could be the worst franchise tag player that the Lions have ever had, I thought, well, it's a good bold take, but I don't think it's exactly right. And here's why. Right now, there's a situation in which the entire organization basically has a free pass for 1 year. Many fans will say, whoa, pump the brakes on that kind of talk. But when you got a new head coach that's coming in, you know what? He's going to survey the landscape and bring his system in. And you also have to include that factor in as you got Matt Patricia, this quote-unquote defensive guru, coming in. If Ezekiel Ansah does get healthy and stays on the field, I do think he can be productive, and you have to have a defensive rusher. And look, they signed somebody else now as insurance, so you do see that Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia are going to do work to try and get these guys better. Now, yes, if Ezekiel Ansah is injury-prone this year and he doesn't stay on the field and doesn't help and contribute, look, I do think that Bob Quinn will cut him. I don't see him having any fear of letting him go. 1 year, you're instituting a new system. Why not take a chance on him and allow for Ezekiel Ansah to show his talent if he can stay on the field?
Yeah. So about all that, you just gave this guy over $17 million to be your starting D-end, and he's constantly hurt. He hasn't had a very good season since 2015. That's a lot of money to throw around to a guy who is often injured, who is, again, starting on the PUP list. I just feel that this is going to be just like last year. And yeah, everybody's going to say, oh, well, look, he had 12 sacks last year. Yeah, but 9 of those came in 3 games against garbage opponents. So what was he doing for the other 13 games? How was he impacting your team and helping your team get better and get to the playoffs? Because that's what it's about, right? In Detroit, we're at this point now where it's about getting to the playoffs, and not just getting there, but winning a damn game.
Do you feel
we deserve a game?
Yeah, do you feel like you're overvaluing training camp and even being on the PUP list? Because, look, players are just trying to get out of it as much as they can. Look, there's a lot of players holding out. They don't want to practice. A lot of people come in overweight, not in football shape. Do you just feel like maybe you're overreacting just a little bit to being on the PUP list? I mean, he was on the field, close to the start of the year last year.
I don't think so. It's not so much that it's training camp that I have the issue with. It's the fact that he's starting hurt. You know, you don't just go to the PUP list because you got a bellyache. You know, they have ways where they can hold you out of camp if they're afraid of rushing you back. He's on the PUP list. That means he's got to stay there for a certain amount of days, a certain amount of time, and then he'll get reevaluated, and then he's going to have to stay there some more. And this could be just like last season where he comes back the day before they open their season and he practices. And then it's just one of those things where if you look at last season, he was banged up the entire year. He was never fully productive like he should be or like we expect him to be. He was hurt yet again. And it's just time and time again, this guy that you're now paying $17 million, it's really the money to me. It's not even so much that he's on the PUP list. It's the money, and it's the fact that he's never healthy. You know, I need you to be on the field, and I need you to be just annihilating quarterbacks. If this defense is going to be successful, that secondary has to hold up, and that defensive line has to make the quarterback's day a complete nightmare. They have to provide pressure, and they've got to get sacks, and they've got to force fumbles, and they've got to force bad throws for this secondary to be able to turn the ball over. That's what Matt Patricia's defense is predicated on. It's predicated on turning the ball over and getting a change of possession. He'll give up a bajillion yards. You know, you'll see games going forward where the Lions might give up 560 yards, but they only gave up 2 touchdowns. And you're like, wait, how the hell do you give up that much yardage, but only allowed 14 points? How does this happen? It's all about turning the ball over. And the way you turn the ball over is by forcing pressure and getting to the quarterback or stopping the running back in the backfield. And whose job is that? It's mainly Ziggy Ansah's job. He's your best defensive lineman that you have. Yes or no?
I do agree. Yes.
Okay. That's why he's making $17 million this year. So him not being healthy, and you've seen how he plays when he's not healthy. When he's not healthy and he's banged up, he's not as impactful. He's not as good of a player as he could be.
But
when he plays at 70%, I feel like I should pay you 70% of your $70 million.
But do you feel like because of the fact that people were talking about should he get a long-term extension, should he get a long-term deal, and it didn't happen, that he got franchised, and so when that happens, that provides both the player and the organization a chance to evaluate and say, well, if he doesn't perform on his franchise tag, we can just let him go. We don't have to commit to him for a long-term deal. And I do think that also gives Bob Quinn an out. And also, you heard the news earlier on Wednesday, former Patriots defensive tackle Ricky Jean-Francois is now joining the Lions. I mean,
which I like. I think that's a solid signing.
I think that's a solid safe gap. Now, it does maybe speak to concerns that the organization has regarding Ezekiel Ansah and what he can do.
Oh, you don't say.
Yeah, so
like the moment that Ziggy goes on the PUP list, they're on the phone. They're like, wait, hold on. Hey, so can you come in? Like, we're really interested. Like, we were interested before. We're really interested now.
Exactly.
So, yeah, I think you're right. I think it speaks to the degree that he might be dealing with whatever injury it is that he's dealing with. My issue is, you look at what happened last season. And I feel like we're hitting the repeat button. And I don't want to hit the repeat button because he wasn't really effective last season. Cool, man. You had 9 sacks in 3 games. Awesome. The other 13 games, you were essentially a ghost. You didn't really do good enough to help us get to the playoffs. And that's what it's about. Over $17 million, you could funnel that money into a couple different players to help make this team better. And it doesn't necessarily have to even be on the defensive line. You could get guys for the defensive line, and then you could add other guys. You could go out there and you could possibly get a more impactful linebacker, even though I think Kennard's going to be very good.
Yes.
They totally restructured that linebacking core. But when they went out and they grabbed guys, let's be honest, they were all second-tier free agents, maybe third-tier free agents. There was nobody out there that you were like, whoa, they got that guy? Mm-hmm. And they got him for how much? There was nobody like that.
And I think we also have to discuss what the scheme is going to be. Is there going to be a hybrid of 3-4, 4-3?
Right.
I do think that, if you look at what New England was able to do, it's kind of a bend, don't break. Definitely pressure the quarterback at the right times, try to get those key turnovers. You got Darius Slay, and he's probably going to do a lot of great things in that secondary, leading them. And then you got those linebackers. So if you go to a 3-4, what does that mean? That means a lot of drop back coverage, a lot of, letting them get 3-4 yards and then trying to get turnovers when you can. Remember, you got to also think that we got to still see and evaluate what Matt Patricia is going to do with these guys. And maybe they say, you know what? If we can get pressure here and there at the right time, then we don't need Ezekiel Ansah on the field 3 plays every single defensive series. Maybe the way they utilize him is, look, I know we're paying him a lot of money, but if we need him just in those big moments and he can deliver with Zettel, those 2 linebackers that can maybe potentially emerge, you also mix in some safety blitzes, some exotic schemes, there's an opportunity to say, you know what, let's just wait and see how we evaluate what goes on with Matt Patricia and how that scheme works, because look, I understand Ezekiel Ansah is a big part of that and they're going to want him on the field, but early on, I do think if he's hurt, they're going to ease him into it and get the most out of him. I do feel like Ezekiel Ansah is going to have a good year, even despite the fact that he's starting the year on the PUP list. I don't think that when you look at it, you also have to kind of really state that Matt Patricia could do some things for him to make the players better. And he's shown that from New England, is that, look, they didn't have a bunch of great names that littered that roster, and all of a sudden they show up and they're in the Super Bowl and they're doing some things. So do you discount that? I don't know, but I do give right now my comfortableness with Matt Patricia is pretty strong that he can get the most out of what's going on with that roster. I do think he can make chicken, salad out of chicken shit right now.
I agree with you. I think one of the big things about signing Matt Patricia is his ability to get the most out of whatever he has as far as talent. It's his ability to devise schemes to put those guys in the best spot so they can make an impact on the football field. And I like what you're saying about not utilizing him as much as they utilized him in the past. If you can utilize Ziggy Ansah at, say, 60%, maybe 70% instead of 90%, that means when he's out there on the field, he's going to be fresher, he's going to be able to go more, he's going to be able to do more for you. All that being said, he's got to be able to get on the field. And that's my concern.
Now, do you say also that, look, even with Ezekiel Ansah on the field, even if everybody's 100%, everybody's looking across the landscape, and I think people's perception of the Lions is kind of slowed down a little bit, and they're going, well, you know what, based on what's going on, they've either won 7 or 9 games in the last 4 years, and they've kind of flip-flopped, and they've been inconsistent, not really making the playoffs all that much and making deep runs. You just kind of look at that team and that schedule, and it just smacks of 8-8, 7-9. It doesn't lead me to believe that they're going to have such a solid year. And so you say, you know what? Just see what you can do, evaluate, and see who you can roll with going ahead of the next draft, because I'm still seeing 7-8 wins out of this roster.
You have the second toughest schedule.
It's tough,
in
right?
the entire NFL going into the year.
And people are saying, look, 1-4 to start the year is odds-on favorite to what they're going to start, right?
It's possible.
1-4.
It's definitely possible. I mean, their first 5 games are pretty difficult. I mean, you sit there, you get the Jets. That should be a W, right? After that, who do you got? Is it
San Fran on the road?
San Fran on the road. Okay, so Jimmy G and Karamia, whatever he's doing with her.
You're clapping on the sidelines.
Lucky that guy. And then after that, you got the Patriots. Like, Patriots week 3. The only cool thing about getting the Patriots week 3 is hopefully you're healthy. Like, everybody's healthy. So you don't have to take them on and be all banged up. Now, conversely, they're probably not going to be banged up either, and Gronk will be going at 100%. So, hey, good luck with all that.
And then Cowboys and then
Cowboys,
the Packers.
Right, and then Packers. Exactly. So your first 5 games is a bit of a gauntlet right up until you get to the bye week. They got that early bye this year. So, I mean, look, honestly, if they could go, 2-3? They go 2. If they go 2-3 out of their first 5 games, I think we're looking at each other like, all right, cool, we got a shot.
Then the Dolphins probably have a chance to get to 3-3.
Right. If they can go 3-2 in those first 5 games, at that point, we're looking at each other, we're high-fiving.
Yeah.
This is not going to be one of those seasons where they start off super hot and then they cool down and lose it down the road. No, it's going to be a struggle from Jump Street.
If you ask me, the most important stretch is right after the break. You got the Dolphins, Seahawks, Vikings, Bears, and Panthers. You got to do some damage. If you start off 1-4, you got to start winning. 1, 2, 3, 4. You probably got to go 4-1 in that stretch of games right there, because
good luck.
It sets up. Yeah, because the closing of the season is brutal. Bears, Rams, Cardinals, Bills, Vikings, Packers. Oh, there's no easy.
There really is nothing easy.
Look at that schedule, bro. So I got to ask you this. Let's say it is a 6-10, 7-9 year, no playoffs. You got Matthew Stafford still with no playoff success. How are you viewing the Detroit Lions? Let's say it is a 6-7 win year, and it's not the best, but you see the emergence of Darius Slay continuing. Matthew Stafford continues to throw for over 4,000 yards. Still that guy. Year 1. Do you start to get a little bit more nervous regarding Stafford and what he can do? Or do you say, look, I'm just going to roll back to Quinn, and my evaluation will involve Quinn and Patricia, and maybe back away from looking at Stafford, because the more you start evaluating that Stafford is getting closer to the end of the year, we are really looking at a 4 to 5 year window where that's it. It's the gamble time. It's like we're now entering the casino with the money, and we're about to hit the craps table, and we need to kind of start hitting some passes. Because if we come up snake eyes in the next 4 years, probably going to be another decade.
Yep.
I mean, we'll be in our 60s.
At some point, they're going to have to look for the replacement for Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
And you're right. It's probably in that 3 to 4 year window here where they're going to have to go get that guy, whoever he is. I mean, if they believe in Jake Rudock, cool, but I don't think he's the guy.
It's going to come up quick.
Yeah.
I mean, I think
before you know it.
I think Stafford will have this year and next year, and then the heat just goes way up, and people are going to start to say, look, we'll have more and more people say, look, I think right now it's 50-50. I do think that in 1 or 2 years, if there's no playoff wins, it'll have to swing to 70-30 against him.
Yeah. No, I think you're spot on.
So how do you feel if they go to 6 or 7 wins this year?
Okay. So I would be really disappointed. Let's start there. I would be really, really disappointed if the Lions get their running game going, though, and it's effective, and Jim Bob Cooter figures out how to call a run game and mix that in with his pass game, and we're seeing something dynamic from this offense. They just weren't able to necessarily put it all together, whether it be the offense or the defense or the special teams. There was always something lacking in a game. It just kind of felt disjointed as a team, but they get it going. I would feel better about that. But that being said, going into this year, look at what they did last year. They went 9-7 with a bozo for a coach. Jim Caldwell is a bozo, all right? The guy can't count to 11, can't get his guys on the field, has really no clue what the hell is going on. That's why he always looks lost on the sideline. That team went 9-7 last year. I'm expecting at least 9-7, and I'm expecting you to be in contention, bidding for a playoff game when December rolls around. You need to keep me interested at that point. I really want them to make the playoffs because last year they just missed out on making the playoffs. So every year I think your expectations need to go up. When you sit there and you're like, oh, well, schedule's really hard, and Ziggy Ansah's already hurt, and we have really no depth at defensive end. When you start making excuses like that, it's just a backdoor for guys like Bob Quinn, Matt Patricia, Matt Stafford to underperform and to be able to be like, hey, guys, we tried really hard. We just didn't cut the mustard this year. We'll get them next year, though. And you know what that is? That's same old Lions. That's the same thing that they did every single year. They wouldn't make the playoffs. They'd always sell you this bill of hope for next year. Well, when does next year come if you keep pushing it down the pike? You know what I'm saying? Like at what point are we like, it's now next year. Can we get to the playoffs? Can we get a playoff win? I want more than a playoff win. I want a Super Bowl at some point. I mean, it's always about winning a championship, right? Otherwise, why are you playing the game? Going into the season, I want them to be in playoff contention. I want them to make the playoffs. That's what I want. That's my expectations for this team. What I will settle for, right? The very minimum I will take them being 9-7 and missing the playoffs. You're basically right where you were last year. And the only reason I give this a pass is because you have a brand new head coach. You have a new run game that you're trying to install with a rookie running back and a revamped offensive line. All right. You got some new pieces that are working. You got a new offensive line coach. You got things that are going to be different on the offensive side. I feel like your defense is really incomplete. You don't have enough depth along the defensive line. Your linebacking core is basically brand new. It was like you went to Toys R Us and instead of buying Transformers, you bought like the bootleg version of GoBots, and you're like, hey, let's go play. And you're like, all right, cool, you're Optimus Prime. But it's really not Optimus Prime. It's like, I don't know, Packer Bell 62. Like, who? What is he? But he's the guy who's Optimus Prime, right? So, hey, there's Kennard. Kennard, go out there, get somebody, do something. And I think he's going to be productive. I really do. I think he fits what Matt Patricia wants to do. So you got me all revved up. I've been talking for like 15 minutes here.
It's awesome. I think we're both, you and I, everybody that talks Detroit sports, we're getting excited because the hope lies with the Lions, not the Tigers, not the Pistons, definitely not the Red Wings. So this is our chance for the second half of the year for college sports and the Detroit Lions to take the stage and say, hey, give us something to cheer about, because it's been a long time. I mean, we've done a lot of dissecting. We've done a lot of role-playing, a lot of interviews, a lot of scenarios, a lot of history talking. It's just not a lot of hope and victory. And maybe the Detroit Lions can give us that. You never know, because if it shakes out, maybe if some of the luck factor breaks our way, if Matthew Stafford even takes that next step and goes from a tier 2 to a tier 1 and cements himself in that tier 1 situation, then finally maybe that could be the small amount of luck, the small amount of hope that we need to kind of go from 9-7 to 10-6 and 11-5. You never know. It could happen. Is it likely? No. But that small little window where some luck could happen, Stafford gets well, Ziggy Ansah stays on the field and is not the worst franchise tag player in the history of the Lions. If that doesn't happen and Matt Patricia hits the ground running, there's a chance for success, and we'll see what happens. Ooh, I can't wait to talk, man. Next week,
Fingers
it's going to be
crossed.
fun. Yeah, we'll talk more about Stafford and where we think, obviously, he fits in and what's going to happen. We'll preview the offense and defense upcoming, and we'll definitely get to know.
Before we go, and since we're on Lions, you had a chance to look at that ESPN article where
I did.
They ranked Matt Stafford seventh.
By definition,
the seventh quarterback
Yep.
in the NFL. What did you think about that? What's your take on it?
Obviously, as a guy that's more of a Stafford critic, I don't think he's tier 1, tier 2. I think by definition tier 3 means that he has to have a running back, has to have a defense, needs help in order to make things happen. By definition.
Okay.
Now, could I agree with the fact that he's tier 2? Of course. Do I think he's a top 10? Probably number 9 or 10. But in terms
So
of,
you think he's a little too high?
yeah, I think right now, based on the definition, I would have put him by that criteria. I don't think he's a guy that can take over a game and can get you victories. I think he needs a lot of help, and that's what they've done. They've surrounded him with great running backs, a great offensive line. They've given him tight ends.
Dude, I'll point to the Minnesota game. Was that last year, 2 years ago, where Golden Tate did the flip into the end zone? That was all Matt Stafford. I mean, Golden Tate made a spectacular move. He tiptoed along the sidelines, but that 2-minute drive was all Matt Stafford, man.
Look,
I agree with you. I think at certain points in the season, he kind of falls apart, or certain points in games. He never plays a complete game. I think that's his big issue.
Is he a starting quarterback in the league? Yes.
Absolutely. Is he
Now,
a franchise quarterback?
yes. Now, the other part is this. Okay, now we're going into the upper echelon where we're saying, okay, now we're in the top 12 of quarterbacks. What do the top 12 guys do, like Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, when it's crunch time, when it's time to perform?
Those guys are elite.
Look, I can put it in a metaphor that you'll understand. Look, you can do a great podcast 5 days a week. You can record for 4 hours, right? They put you on the ticket. They don't want you bumbling and stumbling. They want you to show up
you're
there
absolutely right.
and take the calls, and they put you on the ticket. They're wanting you to give a take, and they're wanting you to have great phone calls. They're wanting you to get good call volume, and they're wanting you to perform on the biggest stage. If they give you 2 to 6, they're not going to be like, what did you do on episode 184? You interviewed Adam Carolla. They're not going to care.
Right.
They're going to care when you get on the ticket.
Did we interview him for 184?
Oh, yeah. No, I'm not sure the exact number.
Okay.
Yeah. We've interviewed him twice on this platform. They're not going to care
You're absolutely right.
When that orange ring goes on the ticket, 2 to 6 with a big audience, they're going to want you to perform.
No.
And Matthew Stafford, when that red light has gone on versus Pittsburgh, versus Cincinnati, week 15, when you got to get a win, silence, nothing.
Right. No, you're right. You're absolutely.
So that's the metaphor I'm going to use.
You're absolutely right. The thing is, I think he's right where he needs to be in that list. I think he is the 7th best quarterback. I do. I believe that.
I wish he was paid like the 7th best quarterback.
Well,
it's getting there, right?
right.
It's starting
I mean,
soon.
if you look at honestly, when all is said and done, fans will be happy for that contract. I think he is honestly the 7th best quarterback in the league.
Okay.
I think he does have some holes in his game.
Okay.
I think he has. I don't think he's ever played a complete game. I don't think he's ever played a complete season, and that's the difference between, let's say, him and Aaron Rodgers or him and Tom Brady. Those guys are dialed in the entire length of the game, and they're ready to go out there and they'll chew up tacks and spit them out. Whereas Matt Stafford, I think, a little bit more subdued. There are times where you just kind of see it. It's like he's not quite there. Like he was like, oh, let's go for the gusto, throws it deep, misses, and then he's like off his kilter, and it takes him a quarter to get it back.
It's a big year, man. It's a big year, and I hope that I'm wrong. But definitely, you guys all know that I've been firm in my position on Stafford. He's got to show me more. I mean, look, if you remember back to
I want
interviews,
more too.
Yeah, we all want more.
I definitely want more.
We want more, and I don't know. Can he deliver it? This is a big year. This is going to be probably one of the biggest proving years for anybody in the entire NFL history.
Let me ask you this, okay? Because in that list they had what's his nuts? Ben Roethlisberger ranked 4th.
Yeah.
Would you prefer Matt Stafford or Ben Roethlisberger?
Big Ben all day?
Are you serious?
I take Big Ben right now. Yes.
Hell no.
I take Russell Wilson, who's just
I would
outside.
take Russell Wilson as well.
Yeah.
Russell Wilson was ranked right ahead of Matt Stafford. But hell no, I don't want Big Ben. Big Ben he'll have 2 games where he lights up the scoreboard, throws for like 520 yards, throws 4 touchdowns, 1 interception, just sets the world on fire. Usually it's against a team from Ohio, whether it be Cleveland or Cincinnati.
It's a good poll
Then
question.
what he'll end up doing is he'll have a game like he had against the Jags where he throws 4 or 5 interceptions, can't find any of his receivers, and just struggles the entire game. Also, remember, he's got arguably the best running back in the league and arguably the best wide receiver in the league. And this guy still has awful games. What the hell? Are we serious here? He's got the most help. The most help. I mean, if Matt Stafford had Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell, come on, dude. You mean to tell me that you're not winning Super Bowls with that guy? Like, Ben Roethlisberger should be winning Super Bowls right now. Instead, he's out there looking like he's punch drunk and he's ready to go drink a beer and maybe sleep with a girl against her will, allegedly.
Listen, if Big Ben's a quarterback of this Detroit Lions team, we're talking about how do the Lions get out of the NFC North and how do they win a playoff game. That's what we're talking about. I say that if Big Ben's on this team, I'm talking about, okay, I'm expecting them to be second or at least minimum first or second in that division.
Is that camera rolling?
No, luckily it turned off, right?
So I want to show them the face that I'm making at you right now.
Oh, definitely. That's a good question you asked. I definitely would take Big Ben all day. I would be thrilled. I'd be like, great, now you can throw deep. You can definitely have a guy with experience, playoff experience.
Matt Stafford can throw deep. The only thing he doesn't have is the playoff experience.
Well, throw deep in the playoffs.
I mean, he's got Ben has the best damn wide receiver and possibly the best secondary option for a wide receiver.
Do you think Big Ben can get Marvin Jones the ball, Golden Tate?
Juju Schuster. I think you're out of your mind here. I really think you're crazy.
No, man, I'm telling you, if Big Ben was a quarterback, I'd be more excited.
Look at who Ben plays. All right, he plays Cincinnati, who is usually a dumpster fire, and he plays the Browns, who the Browns usually draw comparisons to the Lions when the Lions sucked really, really bad. You play those guys 4 times a year. Look at who Matt Stafford plays. He plays Green Bay and Minnesota, arguably 2 of the best teams in the NFL right now today. What the hell, bro?
I think on the road, Big Ben would quiet the noise.
On the road, Big Ben sucks, and he plays Butt Hines Field. Is he decent?
You know what I like about our Twitter page? Right away, you ask a question, we get a lot of good engagement. Thank you, everybody. At Detroit Podcast, at Adam R. STROZ. You make this so fun. Elijah One gets in. He says his expectation would be the same. He wouldn't think any differently if Big Ben was a quarterback. I think that's probably what we're going to get.
It's like a half-complete thought.
The question I asked was, if Big Ben was the quarterback of the Lions this season, would your expectations go up?
Would it go up or down?
Stay the same or go down?
What's his expectations? I want to know. Can you respond back to him? Tell me during the show.
Meaning that, I will ask what he thinks, but probably he'll say 7 to 9 wins. That has to be the logical answer, but I'll definitely ask him. 7 to 9 wins right now?
You're bringing in Big Ben, right? You're the guy who's saying that if you bring Big Ben in right now, we're Super Bowl, baby. We're going Super Bowl because we can throw the ball deep and Big Ben can drink a beer on the sideline. You know, I feel like Big Ben might become the next Smokin' Jay. You know Smokin' Jay? Smokin' Jay Cutler?
Oh.
So like the pictures of Jay Cutler where he's always got a cigarette hanging out of his mouth. I feel like Big Ben could be the next. I want somebody. You guys are talented out there. You guys who listen, can somebody do that for me? Put like a cigarette or a joint or something in Ben Roethlisberger's mouth. Maybe have him holding a beer can too. Just, can I get smoking, drinking Big Ben? Oh my God, it'd be great. That's a good
topic. I think we'll flesh it out a little bit more. I'd like Big Ben on the Lions, dude. That'd be great. You know what? Let me tell you this. I'm sure you read this. Mm-hmm. Right now, Matthew Stafford's jersey sales in terms of ranking, 32nd for Dick's across the country. His jersey,
Dick's Sporting Goods, right?
Dick's Sporting Goods.
Okay.
What kind of dick you're thinking about?
When you go back and you listen to that, the way you left that, you're like 4 dicks.
Yeah.
Wait, what?
For Dick's Sporting Goods.
Okay, cool.
Is ranked 32nd.
I can't wait till you listen to it back.
Big Ben comes in town. I think his jersey's flying off the shelf.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
Box office, baby.
I'm sure it is.
All right, let's take our first time out. We'll come back and we'll rile it up again because we're going to talk about Michigan State. We'll talk about the media and what they did to Big Ten Media Day. And I think I'll talk to you a little about the media too, because the media is under attack. But you know who I think is hurting the media more than the president? It's the media itself. You guys in the media, what you're doing to each other's coverage is interesting when you watch from afar. And we'll talk about that next on episode 259 of the Detroit Sports Podcast. You're listening to Doc and Jock. Adam, I want to tell you about our host site, Podomatic.com. When you and I first started this project, we were looking for a place to host all of our recorded audio so that everybody could find it. And thank goodness I Googled easy way to host a podcast. And the first thing that popped up, Podomatic.com. We've recorded over 1,000 podcasts since September of 2013. You believe it?
Really?
It's over 1,000 podcasts now. We're hitting 1,100 soon. So when we record that many podcasts, you got to have a good host site. So when we send links out to your producer friends, your media friends, they push a button. They're like, oh, I can hear Adam. Great way to grow your project. do a podcast. And we've been lucky here at the network, and we've now earned credentials at the professional level, and we've already had credentials at the collegiate level. And the only way we've been able to grow this thing is to have a great host site. So if you're looking to start a brand new project, Adam, Vito, Shay, Jason, Steve, all the hosts here that record podcasts, we're going to recommend one host site and one host site alone. Go to Podomatic.com.
That's a lot of podcasts we've recorded.
Yeah.
I didn't realize we recorded that many. I mean, I know. I was gonna wait to mention this till next week, but I'll just do it right now. So next week's podcast will be our official 5-year anniversary podcast.
260.
Yeah.
You believe that?
That's crazy, dude.
260 podcasts, 5 years of recording. Well, think about it. 260 here. Jason's done 160. Vito's done 150. All the interviews we've done. It adds up. 1,000 podcasts.
Yeah.
I checked the reports. Other hosts who've done, see with us. It's
the interviews that you've done.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. The audio,
crazy.
the press conferences, it adds up.
It does.
It adds up pretty quick. So we've done over 1,000 podcasts, man. Good stuff. Now, in talking about the media real fast, the biggest enemy of the media is not the president. The biggest enemy of the media is the media.
Well, I don't know about all that.
I'm going to tell you why.
Kind of off his rocker.
I think he's taking advantage of what he's seeing, and he sees a crack in the armor. Media members are cracking on media members. You got Deadspin feuding with members of the media in town, and you got members of the Free Press, cracking back on Deadspin, calling it a whack organization that's about to be bought and sold and ripped apart by Barstool Sports. The media attacks the media quite a bit, and it's not a nice thing. And when you look at it, you go, whoa. I think the media needs to do a better job of kind of saying, look, yes, if there's issues, kind of keep it private, because right now it's a very sensitive situation. When you look at the New York Daily News, they got ripped apart. They got 9 people in their whole sports department. The organizations are looking at how papers are making money, and sports journalism is in a really rough spot, especially in the writing department. I think it's going to go more towards less entities and more team-run stuff, where you have a lot of writers going to the Lions, Tigers.
I really hope it's not team ran stuff, because
It's going to be because that's where the profits are at. Unfortunately, that's where it's at.
some of your feature articles cool because you have that access,
right?
But when it comes to the hard hitting stuff,
right? And
here's team coverage stuff glosses over so much because it puts the organization or it puts the player in a bad light, and that's what's horrible. So I hope it doesn't go that route.
And look, I'll be honest. When you have people now in the media leaving to take PR jobs. They're going to these team-run stuff. They're leaving the field in general. What happens is then you get people like this, and this is, I hope when I start asking questions, or Vito or you, or when we get a chance to expand and do more, I hope we're not viewed like as fanboy bloggers and things like that, but I don't really care. But here's what happens when people leave the field. You get people like this showing up to interviews, and even I said, now, deep down, I'm not going to lie, when I heard the question, I'm like, damn, I wish I had the guts to do it, because when you ask a question like this, you're going to face scrutiny, but you make a name for yourself. But in terms of journalistic credibility, there's no way this guy from the Spartan Wire or whoever he is going to be.
Has anybody even heard of this?
I've never heard of it, but this is what happens.
Or whatever type of
this is what happens.
Rag it is.
Literally look at it. Look at the state of sports, where the Detroit Sports Podcast is sending people to an event. If you thought about it, getting in is like, oh, wait a minute. It's made me look going, wait a minute. What does that mean? Is the barrier to entry really that bad? Or are they looking for coverage by any means necessary? When you look at the ratings, but I said, look, Vito, I don't care. However, just to say that we did it is more than an accomplishment for me. But look at this question and see, where do you go with it?
Coach Crowley Sullivan, Spartans Wire. A little bit of a follow-up on that question. You came into Ann Arbor with perhaps the most hype of any coach in the history of the Big Ten, maybe in all of college football. A few years later, you've got a third place, and fourth place finish, and you're 1-5 against Michigan State and Ohio State. What do you have to do this year to demonstrate to the Michigan community that you are on the path to achieving what they hired you to achieve?
No, he says it's slow, calculating, and it's great.
It's the biggest troll job ever.
I loved it.
Like, he was trying to get a rise out of Harbaugh, and Harbaugh did a great job not feeding into it.
Yeah.
Just answered the question and kept it moving. But that was the biggest troll job ever. That was a guy who's trying to put Spartan Wire. I mean, here we are talking about it. I can't believe those words just came out of my mouth, but whatever. We're talking about it. So he's just trying to make a name for that publication.
But yeah.
Get the hell out of here.
But
that was
bad
such
question?
a troll job.
Bad question.
It was a horrible question. I mean, okay, so I get what he was asking, but it was the way he went about asking it. Like, that was so condescending. You could have phrased it differently. You could have been like,
What's the best way to answer that question?
What's his name? John Crowley Smith from SpartanRag.com or whatever. Coach Harbaugh, you came in and there was a ton of praise heaped upon you. What do you have to do to validate that praise when you face your rivals? Easy as that. Honest question, right? What do you have to do to basically, for everything that was made about you, say, sure, why not?
Was the most egregious part where he kind of went off and said you finished third, and fourth?
Yes.
Okay.
Like that was where it started to take its turn.
Yeah.
And then it never really got back on the track. It was just like, hey, hold on, I got the knife in you. Now let me turn it.
Yeah, it's
Cool,
unfortunate.
bro.
And that's the tough part, is that there's not a lot of profitable media outlets out there. So guys like this.
Good for this guy to go and do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope when you type your story in your mom's basement, it's cool, bro. But like, what the hell are we talking about here? Like, don't be an asshat. You know what I'm saying? Just don't. Like, it's not necessary. Like, there is a rivalry. I'm a Michigan fan. Tell you every week I'm a Michigan fan. You're a Michigan State fan. We go back and forth.
Yeah.
We jockey back and forth. You'll sit there and you'll play Trouble with the Snap just to play Trouble with the Snap.
Yeah.
And I'll look at you and I want to cry because it was such a bad moment for me as a Michigan fan.
Do you think Big Ten media days and media days like this will probably go away, or do you think that, you know what, it's just going to become more of a circus?
No, they're going to stay. Do you know why?
Because
There's
I feel
too
like
much money in it, man.
Jim Harbaugh showing up there taking the heat. Well, you know, he made news talking about the fact that he wants to kind of do away with an event that he can't get into, and it's tough. But because I don't think he thought that.
I love how you do stuff sometimes.
I don't.
You're such a sneaky little bastard.
I don't know. You know, Jim Harbaugh made news, and or is the media just really being hyper focused on whatever Jim Harbaugh says because of the fact that he says he wants to expand the playoff to 8 to 16 teams, and he said really one of the lines that people gravitated towards was, "Hey, I just think that there's no really need for a conference title game."
I see. I disagree with that. I totally disagree with that. I think there is a need for the conference title game. I don't think there's a need for the 3 warm-up games that you have every season. I think you should just go right into playing your schedule. You know, maybe if you need a compromise, I'll give you 1 warm-up game.
Okay.
But I don't need 3 of them. I don't need to see you go play Western Michigan. I don't need to see you play Sisters of the Poor. Nobody needs to see that. That's just extra cash that you're doling out to that school to come in, and that's just extra cash I'm doling out because that's the only game I can get a ticket to go see you guys play because nobody wants to go see that crap. But I have to go every single week or every single year with my cousin because he wants to get drunk and fall asleep at Michigan Stadium. So I go because I have to go. Do you know what I'm saying? This is like actually what happens every single year. So, yeah, but no, I personally love the fact that he's talking about 16 games. 16 games is the right number to me.
16 teams in the playoff.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 16 teams. I think I just tweaked my hamstring sitting here. I don't know how I did that. Like, it really hurt. And right as I was saying 16, I went to go say 16 teams. Anyways, I think 16 is the right number. I don't like 4. I think 4 is it's not enough. 8's good, but I feel like it could be so much more of an event if it's 16. I mean, you look at the NCAA college basketball tournament, right? There's 68 teams that initially start, and then it gets pared down to 64. And nobody really cares about those first 4 games. They're just kind of there. But everybody gets juiced up for every single game once it gets down to 64 teams, and then it starts working its way. And you get really excited when the Sweet 16 rolls around. I think 16 is the right number. That's when you're like, all right, cool. These are the 16 best schools in all of college football going up against each other. And I think there's a way you can sit there. We've talked about this before. I think there's a way you can build out brackets where, you know, one's going to take on 16 and, you know, on the other side, you're going to have 2 taking on 15, and you just kind of build it out that way. Real similar to the way the college basketball bracket does it. You know, you have regions, and it's basically like 4-game mini regions, and you just end up meeting for the final.
So tell me why you feel like Michigan fan is overreacting and overhyping Michigan. You feel like they need to taper their expectations. You were strong on this.
Well, I think all Michigan fans overhype this team and this brand, and I say brand with sarcasm and finger quotes.
But they're returning a lot of players.
They are.
It's a good team if you look at it, if they perform.
Right. Here's the thing. They are a good team, but here's the but. We have no confirmation on who the quarterback is. We all believe it's going to be Shea Patterson. Shea Patterson comes from a spread option style of play. He's moving to a pro style of play. Jim Harbaugh is supposed to be the quarterback whisperer. We've not seen it since he's been in college. I mean, he did some good things with Jake Rudock, but Brandon Peters didn't get help. John O'Connor didn't get any help. And I mean, look at anybody. Wilton Spate didn't get any help. So this guy's supposed to be the quarterback whisperer. What I do think is going to happen with Shea Patterson, because I do believe he's going to be your starting quarterback when the season kicks off against Notre Dame. I think you're going to see a lot of what he did with Colin Kaepernick. He really simplified the game for Colin Kaepernick, and that's why he was able to excel so much. It was a one-read style offense. You basically looked up, tried to find your guy that you're going to pass to. He wasn't available. You know what you do? You tuck the ball, you run. I think that's what's going to end up happening with Shea Patterson. Now, you don't know what you got going on as far as your left tackle with this team. And I do like the fact that they've made some changes for the offensive line. It sounds like they simplified the things that the offensive line has to do. I think we talked about it last year. That was a big issue with this offense. They ran such complicated schemes. These guys were trying to digest the playbook every single week, and they just weren't catching up. And it wasn't so much that they're dumb guys, they don't get it. Generally, your offensive linemen are the smartest guys on your team and on your roster. It was just that complicated and that complex, and they were throwing so much at them that they never really got into a good flow, and they kept rotating guys in and out, and they kept changing it up. There was no consistency. So I think you bring some consistency to it. You simplify it a little bit. You got to figure out who your left tackle is, because there's still big question marks for your left tackle. It seems like the rest of the line is coming into shape. You got good wide receivers on this team. You look at the defense. I think the defense is going to be pretty good. I think you have something to build off of from last year, but I think you lost some key pieces last year that went to the NFL.
No, I know Michigan fans are hungry for success. They really are waiting for an opportunity to, move up in the rankings in the division. They don't want to finish third or fourth. They want to be up there with Michigan State, Ohio State. They want to start seeing some performances that are worthy of what Michigan is as a brand. And I think what people, though, that are really realistic regarding Michigan are starting to realize right now the biggest weakness on Michigan is the coach. That's the biggest weakness, is that they got good talent. They got, good solid coaching on the defense. Right now, the biggest question mark is, and everybody's assuming that with talent, Jim Harbaugh is going to take this team past 10, 11 wins. And unfortunately, everyone's going to start to ask after this year and maybe next year, the fifth year, when people start to say, oh, you know what? Urban Meyer's already a made man. Mm-hmm. Jim Harbaugh's trying to be a made man in college football, and he now has more talent. And now the perception is that Shea Patterson's probably the best quarterback at Michigan. Now, are there other quarterbacks that are waiting in the wings? Sure. But, can you guys wait another year, 2 or 3 in year 4, 5, 6? A lot of people are saying, yeah, we can wait. But I think that the biggest weakness right now is Jim Harbaugh, and the fact of the matter is you got to take that team with the expectation, and you got to perform. You got to win versus Michigan State. That's a huge game. That could be a game where both teams are coming in top 10 undefeated. You got to beat Ohio State. Jason said on the Motor City Sports Rant that comes out every Tuesday, he feels like it's Indy or bust. They got to at least get to Indy this year. Otherwise, what are we really talking about? Because all that's going to happen is rinse, recycle, repeat. That you're just going to have another overhyped class. You're going to have another quarterback that people love, and then you're still going to have Urban Meyer and Mark D'Antonio over there handling their business, because D'Antonio, from my perspective, has a quarterback, has a system in place that's shown to kind of do some things, and if he gets the right talent that he can coach up, there's an ability maybe to do more things because of what he's already established with a couple more years in that program. So this is a big year for Matthew Stafford, and it's a big year for Jim Harbaugh. Two guys that got a lot of pressure on them this fall. I would even argue Jim Harbaugh's got way more pressure than Matthew Stafford does, and that'll be probably a poll question that we ask later on down the road. But
I want to give you a little bit of insight to what Jim Harbaugh is thinking.
Yes,
at Media Day and what he's thinking going into camp. And this is from an article from Cody Stavenhag. Anyways, go to theathletic.com. Athletic's got a bunch of great stuff. And I'm not usually one for paying for content. Great stuff. I will tell you, great stuff. I use it all the time. Anyways, he had a really nice article about Michigan and what we learned at Big Ten Media Days.
Yes.
And what we learned is Jim Harbaugh might be a space cadet. His biggest concern right now, what he's most interested in, is who their third string running back is. Bro, figure out what's going on with the QB.
Yeah.
Like, let's go there. Like, you got 2 studs. You interviewed one of them, Cron Higdon. You interviewed him right here on this network. You got 2 studs for running backs. You got some studs for wideouts. You got an offensive line that looks like it's shaping up. Figure out who's your damn quarterback. It's the most important position in football, right? It's usually your quarterback, and it's usually your middle linebacker because he's the captain of your defense. Figure it out.
Now we turn our attention to East Lansing. It's a tough situation because now some news has been made regarding off-the-field situations, and we'll talk about that. But it's interesting what's going on with Michigan State. I asked Jason, and we've been debating a little bit who has to have the bigger year, Michigan or Michigan State. A lot of people, by and large, 65% said Michigan has to have the bigger year. But I'll argue that it's Michigan State because when you're the top dog and you got somebody trying to nip at your heels to take over that position, it's important. And Michigan State has the opportunity to do that, and starts with D'Antonio and that defense, and especially with what they got going on, their strengths on offense. Brian Lewerke is kind of, his stock is elevating to a point where we can talk about
he is arguably the best quarterback in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I've got no problem saying that.
I think the expectations are huge. I feel like 9 or 10 wins is realistic. Now, can Michigan State get higher than that? I just feel like when you got the top dog, both Michigan and Michigan State are looking up at Urban Meyer, and it's just, I'll sit here till he leaves the conference or takes a better job or goes back to TV. You know, it's going to be an aberration. I don't see Michigan State having continuous success because look what Ohio State can do. They can get backups to come in and win big games on the road at the big house. You know what that means? That means that they get supreme talent that they can kind of avoid 3-win years, that their worst year is going to be 8-9 wins and not getting to Indy. But right now, Ohio State, they're pretty good. 1 or 2 losses every single year. Urban Meyer, they're the class of the division, and I don't know. It just might be a situation in which we look at it and we go, Michigan State, 8-9 wins, and Ohio State takes it away.
I like how you said Ohio State's pretty good. Like they're very good.
Right.
Like that's the squad in the Big Ten. That's the Alabama of the Big Ten.
Yes.
Let's put it that way.
They're the class. But Michigan State, I do think
State though
just beat Michigan and it's pretty good.
No. If you're a Michigan State,
You can't expect that they're going to get to the college football playoff.
This is what I hate about you guys. I hate this about you guys.
You can't expect that. It's not realistic.
It is. You have 19 starters returning. 19.
So I should expect that they should beat Ohio State. I got it as a loss.
You should
right away.
That's fine. You can think that they're going to lose that, but you should expect to be playing in Indianapolis, winning that game, going on to play in the national championship, in the playoff to play for the national championship. That's what you should be expected to do. You had 10 wins last season. You're returning 19 starters, and arguably you've got the best and most talented quarterback in this league. In this league, we just said best position, like the most important position on the field is quarterback. You have arguably the best one in the Big Ten.
Maybe
he's
maybe
a
the
dual
Ohio State
threat
quarterback
guy.
could maybe do something.
You don't know. He's played basically a quarter. He's played a quarter. That's all you've seen is one quarter against Michigan. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's all you've seen. That's all you have to compare it to. I don't believe that Trace McSorley is going to be some revelation at QB. I think a lot of his success was predicated on the fact that he had an absolute stud for a running back in Saquon Barkley. Saquon's gone now. I don't expect teams to load the box to try to stop him. When you load the box, everything opens up for the quarterback. It becomes much easier to throw downfield. So I don't think Trace McSorley is going to be some revelation for Penn State. All right. After that, who? Shea Patterson? You don't believe in Shea Patterson.
Nope.
Not at all. So what? You mean to tell me that this Ohio State quarterback, this guy who's a sophomore, who played a quarter last year against Michigan, is going to be what? He's going to be the second coming of JT Barrett, or
fine? You can
he's going to be.
Look, you can give the quarterback position
Terrell
to
Pryor. What are we talking about?
You can give the edge to Michigan State and quarterback. Fine. But when you say they got 19 returning starters, every single position player, maybe even some backups at Ohio State, are maybe even better. And if they fulfill that talent and make plays, there's a better opportunity because they got more talent to start with.
You guys are disgusting. Like, you Michigan State fans.
Isn't that realistic?
You're disgusting. You're returning 19 players. All right?
But they're not as good as Ohio State's players. So
how can you make that claim? I think your quarterback that you have is better than Ohio State's quarterback.
That's fine.
I think Ohio State does have some really good players. I really do. I think they have some really talented players.
I think my argument's fair.
You're returning 19 starters. You mean to tell me that you have no confidence in those guys who are coming back, who now have another year in the system, another year in the program? You mean to tell me that those guys can't go out on that field and give Ohio State a run for their money? They've beaten Ohio State in Ohio, in the Horseshoe. They've done it. Maybe not these guys per se, but they've done it. Your head coach has done it. Something my head coach has not done.
Right, but then you look at just in recency, they won 3 games, and then last year they won 10 games, but Ohio State is a team, and they got Urban Meyer that kind of has talent. So what you're saying is, okay, because Michigan State has 19 starters, great, but they're 3-star guys, and Mark D'Antonio gets 4 stars out of them, but Urban Meyer starts with 4-star guys and 5-star guys, and if you look at it head-to-head, what will it take for Michigan State to win? I can't expect them to win. I can expect them to compete, but I'm not going to expect them to win. Right now, if like everybody does, you look at that contest, right now, loss. Ohio State, until something happens or an injury.
So is it because there's a better coach, or is it just because
better coach
they have a better
and
talent?
Better talent. They start with better talent. Urban Meyer gets the most out of them, and you sometimes have to wish for the luck factor.
I think it's going to be a very good game when those two square off.
When you look at some of the faults that Michigan State has, and I can understand your expectations saying that we should expect that. That's the goal. But realistically, if you're objective and you say what's realistically going to happen, realistically, Ohio State's going to have a good year, and potentially maybe even a sleeper team like Nebraska or Penn State could sneak up. Right now, other people are hyping up Wisconsin. But at the same time, you have to look at it and you say that right now, Ohio State is number 1, maybe Wisconsin number 2, and you got Michigan State in the mix. You got Michigan, lurking around. But in terms of expectations in the division, Michigan State is not where it's at in terms of, top dog. It's Ohio State. Can they compete? But I would expect that they play better.
I agree with you that Ohio State
in
is
big
the top
games,
dog.
In big games, Mark D'Antonio and that offense is conservative. They run the same running plays that don't do nothing.
I agree with you that Ohio State is the top dog in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
Okay, I think you're an idiot if you try to argue something different.
Yeah.
What I'm telling you is that you should feel confident that you have a good team.
Yes, 10-win team
that will be competitive against a team like Ohio State.
Yes.
If I'm a Michigan State fan, I am putting my aspirations. The goal that I want to accomplish this year is I want to be playing in Indianapolis for the Big Ten championship.
One word difference. You expect, I hope. That's the difference. Is that you can, if you come with the word expect, I can't expect that because I watch Michigan State. I can't expect them to do it. So that's why.
I don't know what that means. You say that argument all the time, every year. I watch Michigan State. I watch Michigan State too.
But then how can you expect?
I think they have a very good team.
I think you want to expect them to have high hopes so that when they don't.
I remember watching Brian Lewerke sit there and just break off like a 57-yard run and just streaming into the end zone with nobody by him.
Right.
And then I remember watching games where Brian Lewerke sits there and hits dudes with like seam passes and crossing patterns.
I remember
and he threads needles.
I remember games at Northwestern where they get to overtime and they end up falling short in games they should win.
I think a lot of that's on your coach and your coaching staff because Mark D'Antonio has sometimes
that's all. Just one word difference
for an offensive coordinator.
You're saying expect. I say hope. I hope that they can compete versus Ohio State.
Sometimes plays with his butt squeezed too tight.
Yeah.
He should open it up. A little bit.
Yes, exactly. And that's why we hope that you can beat Ohio State. That's until we see something different, until we see a chink in the armor. I don't think you can expect anything until the season starts and you have to hope for an injury or hope that Michigan State balls out. Because remember, Michigan State has to play their A+ game. Ohio State can show up with a B+, B- situation and with some talent can still walk away with the victory. Michigan State's got to ball out offensively, defensively, special teams coaching, no turnovers, no mistakes, big time. But here's the part where maybe you could reel me back in with your argument. Games in East Lansing. Mm-hmm. That's an opportunity to say, okay, when that time comes, if the fans can help and there's some things that can take place in terms of intangibles, well, then you can sway me in that argument. But right now, I hope that Michigan State can compete with Ohio State.
You know what I find funny?
What's that?
So I'm on ESPN right now, and I'm looking at the 2018 Big Ten standings here.
Yeah,
I totally forgot that Rutgers, Maryland, and Indiana are in the East.
Oh,
you don't even consider them.
No.
Like when we're talking about football and we're talking about the Big Ten East, it's Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan. That's it. That's it.
People are talking about the competitive imbalance. It's rough because Wisconsin can basically show up and then Ohio State just has to basically...
Wisconsin every now and then. Iowa will be decent. I mean, Nebraska might be better than 3 and 6 in the conference this year.
Don't sleep on Penn State, too.
But no, I'm not. I think that
It's always a marquee game.
I think Saquon Barkley was that good. I think he's that talented of a running back, especially at that level. I mean, I go back to that Michigan game. I remember sitting in a Chinese food restaurant, staring across from my wife, and I think it was like the first play from scrimmage, and Michigan had him bottled up.
Oh,
they had him
and
bottled
he
up.
escaped.
They had him bottled up behind the
I remember
line.
that.
And then next thing you know, this dude just breaks it off for like
Gone.
80 yards down the field.
In a sea of white.
Right. And I just remember looking at her, and I just remember shaking my head and her being like, what? And I was like, turn your head and watch the replay. So you watch the replay, and she's like, are they that bad that they can't stop that guy?
Right.
I was like, no, he's just that good. Like he's next level. Like he is an NFL player, and these are college guys.
Next week, we'll do a little bit more of a thorough, in-depth background on some of the players, some of the recruits, some of the guys that we're expecting on both sides of the ball, Michigan State, offense, defense. The best part about the podcast, we planned to go 40. We went 70 minutes.
Did we?
We went long, but it's
Holy
good.
cow.
It's all good. Great podcast. I love introducing the concept and the topics of college football. It's great. We're going to break it down, have a good time with it. And it started. You know, it's around the corner.
Oh, yeah.
When the fans are chirping, people are busting out with little brother, little sister. It's going wild.
There was a lot of that. We really wanted to talk about it, but it was hard to find
And then we'll talk about
stuff to really confirm what happened.
We'll table it. Michigan State reinstated Reschke. I do want to give it a couple more days to breathe to see about the reaction because people are still having a lot of questions regarding how it went down, who really was voted, what does that mean? And I want to give it a couple more days to marinate and give my thoughts. But I do think it was interesting in the way it went down and that a guy's been given a second chance. So we'll talk about that. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We appreciate all the support. You can support us free by going to DetroitSportsPodcast.com. Episode 259 is coming to a close. Adam did a great job after hosting a radio show. 70 minutes of passion, fun, talking with my cousin. Good stuff, sir.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate it. Thanks, everybody, for listening.
Follow Adam at AdamRSTROZ. Follow us on the network at Detroit Podcast. Good, bad. If you disagree with our takes regarding Big Ben, Michigan, if you think that Doc is just scared to have expectations, feel free, let us know. We read it all. Thank you so much. We'll see everybody next week. You know it. 260 coming strong.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I have voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me. They tell me things that I will do. They show me things.